Okay, first I want you to hit pause. I want you to read this problem, and I want you to come up with a couple of hypotheses. First, okay, good. Hope you came up with the hypotheses. First hypothesis is that the proportion of people that take a low dose of aspirin is going to be equal to the proportion of people who take a placebo. And the alternative hypothesis would be the proportion of people that take a low dose of aspirin is going to be less than the proportion of people who have heart attacks that take a placebo. You could also write these things like this. PL minus PP is equal to 0. PL minus PP is less than 0. There should be an equal sign here. Okay, so you can write it in one of those two ways. These are the hypotheses that you're testing. Now the question is how to test them. Well, we have a p hat minus a p hat. So let's look at our p hats. First one is 104 over 11,037. The other one is 189 divided by 11,034. This proportion is a little bit less than this proportion. Is that difference enough to prove that this is true? That the proportion of people who have heart attacks that take a low dose of aspirin will actually be less than the proportion of people who have heart attacks that don't? Well, let's check it out. First of all, we need to figure out the standard error of this random variable. In order to find the z-score, we've got to find its standard error. Standard error is going to be equal to the square root of the first p hat, the square root of p times 1 minus p all over n1 plus p times 1 minus p all over n2. And since we are assuming that this is true, since we're assuming the null hypothesis is true, we're assuming that these two p's are going to be the same p. And the best estimate for those is going to be 104 plus 189, the number of people that got heart attacks out of everybody, divided by 11,037 plus 11,034. In other words, the total number of people that got heart attacks divided by the total number of people in the study. Total number of people that got heart attacks, 104 plus 189 equals 293. So altogether there were 293 people that got heart attacks out of 22,071 people altogether. We're going to store that as our p. So I'm going to take that last answer and store it, or divided by 22,071, and call that my p, alphabet p. Okay, cool beans. So now we know what our p is. Now we're going to calculate our standard error. Our z-score is going to be the sample statistic minus the null hypothesis divided by the standard error. I've already got the standard error. Oh, no, I've got p. I haven't calculated the standard error yet. So let's calculate that standard error. I'll go like this. Clear this out. I'll use that p that I just stored. I'll go the square root of p times 1 minus p divided by 11,037 plus p times 1 minus p divided by 11,034. Uh-oh, that first thing I forgot to call p, so let's go back there and change that to p before I hit enter. I get something that looks like that. I'm going to take that whole mess and I'm going to store that, and I'm going to call it the standard error, so let's store it as s. There it is. So that's my standard error, real small number. So it's going to be 0.00154, etc. down here. And on the top, it's going to be this minus that minus the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis says the difference should be 0, so it's going to be that thing minus 0. Now let's figure out what that thing is. That thing is 104. Let's put it where you can see it. 104 divided by 11037 minus 189 divided by 11034. That's my PL minus P hat. That's my P hat L minus my P hat P. So negative 0.0077, etc. So negative 0.007 over that last thing. Let's just figure that out. So that last thing divided by the S that I previously figured out. The S that I previously figured out, that works out to be negative 5.00. Negative 5.00. That is a huge test statistic. It has a huge absolute value. The area way out there in that tail is going to be practically 0. Highly significant. There is lots of evidence to reject the null hypothesis. In other words, there's lots of evidence to say that the alternative hypothesis is true and that a daily low dose of aspirin actually helps people have fewer heart attacks. All right, thank you very much.